Good morning, guys. How are y'all today? Have you guys had your coffee yet? Because I think I've had too much.
Yeah.
My hands are just like shaky. No, I'm nervous. Anyway, my name is Charlotte, and I'm Char2, and she's Char1. And today we'll be talking about how we played the game better using Appium. All right. So, well, what's a better way to play the game? Of course, Appium. We used Appium for many reasons, and these are just a few of the main points of why we used Appium. First things first, Appium integrates with other languages, which is great. So for us, we use Ruby as our stack. The framework can be expanded using UI automation like Apply tools or continuous integration using Jenkins or CI Circle. You can also plug in a device farm with cloud capabilities like SaaS Labs, AWS Device Farm, and TestDroid. And on top of that, it is platform agnostic. So there's no need for a dedicated team just for iOS or Android. You can create polyformism through Appium, and that's what made it wonderful. Today, Charlene and I are going to be talking about our journey within Capital One and how we were able to not start from scratch, but basically start from nothing all the way to a point where we were able to deploy all our test results to JIRA via automation. All right, Charlene, do you want to take the...
Awesome. Yeah, so just quick introduction. I'm Charlene Granadosin. Been in quality assurance since 2010, so this is my 8th year, yay, as a QA. I'm currently a QA manager for Capital One. Little non-technical things about me, I love sushi, so if you ask me for sushi, I'm there. I have 2 little babies, a boy and a girl, and I love going to comic book conventions. I'm missing one this weekend by being here, the Silicon Valley Comic Con. Unfortunately, I was actually supposed to meet Stan Lee, but I'm here instead, but it's okay because it's my first time here in London, first Appium conference, and yeah, Charlotte?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Hi, guys. Long time no see. My name is Charlotte Bersamin. I've been in QA since 2012, so that should be 6 years if I'm doing the math right, and about to go to 7. It's my first time in London as well, and it's my first time talking to a huge crowd. And funnily enough, it's the first Appium convention. Woohoo! So currently I work for Bleacher Report, but prior to that, I was working with Charlene as the senior automation engineer, spearheading iOS. Currently, right now, I'm working on both Android and iOS. Fun fact, I am a Polynesian dancer. So just last week, for all you basketball fans out there, I performed at the Golden State Warriors game. I am a bookworm. I love to read. I made it a point to read 60 books this year, hopefully. I currently finished reading Symposium by Plato, and I'm currently reading The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman, which is a really good book. It makes you look at things differently, like the doors. And last but not least, I'm currently learning Esperanto, which is a constructed language created by L.L. Zamenhof. I think there's only about 2 million speakers. So if there's any Esperanto learner speakers, saluton, London. All right, so this journey, what is this journey that we keep talking about? Well, we'll take you there. Charlene?
Awesome, thank you, Charlotte. So Appium journey at Capital One, it was very interesting. So 3 years ago, I was actually hired to create a mobile automation framework for Capital One, their SparkPay mobile application. I was actually a manual tester coming in. And before that, I was also a WebDriver tester. So I had no idea what Appium was. So what do we do when we don't know anything, right? We Google it. So they said I had to use it using, I had to build it using Appium. So I was very familiar with the Selenium WebDriver. So I tried it using Java Selenium. So who here has never seen this code before? I know there was like workshops yesterday. Yeah, so there's like one person. It's okay. We're in good company today. It's Appium conference. So these are the desired capabilities. Our friends from Sauce Labs actually has a platform configurator that you can use to set this up very easily. So that was easy for me to set up as well because, I mean, it's easy to see that it's just a platform name, and it can be either Android or iOS. App activity, this one is actually pointed to Sauce Labs. So after I've created this capabilities and have connected the mobile device to Appium, it was time to set up my first Appium test. And again, this was Selenium WebDriver derived, so it was actually really good that Appium was Selenium, so it was easy for me to learn Appium. So this was just an easy login, username and password test, but it's kind of ugly, right? I mean, it's okay for a really small application, but you can't really scale this. I mean, you can't really use any of the methods. I mean, it's just username, click, and then an assert at the end. So there were problems here. So because we needed to scale it, and then we had to create our own framework from scratch on top of Appium. But the biggest problem was we had a purely manual team. So I was the only automation engineer coming in, and it was hard because there was a lot of future releases that needed to be done, sprint commitments that needed to happen. So a lot of the automation got put back in the back burner. So again, automation wasn't coming in fruition. So what was our solution to the problem? Since Capital One is such a big company with little teams within it, we started to branch out and ask different teams to see what they have in terms of their automation. And that's where we found Charlotte here. And we actually poached her from a different team. We stole her from a different team. And she actually had a framework in mind for us. Charlotte?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Charlene. So what was the solution that we had in mind? Prior to moving into Charlene's team, I was actually a lead testing specialist for a subgroup within Capital One. And within that group, we were using a screen objects framework, which was created within Capital One. So, well, what is screen objects framework? So screen object is basically a Ruby gem wrapper that's on top or built on top of Appium that we can use to interact with elements on the screen. This is actually authored by two of our colleagues in Capital One named Shripad Bangwat and Shailendra Jain. Well, how do you use the screen object framework? Good question. So when you download the repository or the gem library for the Ruby gem, you have to add the screen object to the gem file, and then you have to create screen.rb file. I'll expand on that later. There's going to be a lot of code, and we're just going to brush through it. We'll definitely accept questions later on. For that, we have the dependencies which we use, which is rake, require all, rspec, cucumber, the Appium library, page navigation, and then child process. All right, so let's get down to the code, which is easier to explain. All right, so before screen object implementation, you had your regular feature file, which then we would create our step definitions. And one thing that I forgot to mention with screen objects was with the screen object wrapper, it was easier for us to kind of organize our tests, our step definition, without having to use find element all the time. So in this case, as you can see, the step definition would require you to use your locator, which is find element, then pass in the locator that you're looking for, whether it be ID or XPath, and then you pass in the path for that specific ID, and then you call the function for that element. Well, for the screen objects, as you can see here, the feature file remains the same, but the only thing is now we have this login screen.rb file, .rb because we are using Ruby in this case. So with the screen objects, you define the element without having to pass find element all the time. So in this case, we create a class login screen because screen object requires you to kind of organize your tests using feature and screen. So whether it be login screen or logout screen, and that's the hierarchy of our tests, which I'll show later on. So in this case, you create your class login screen, and then you can include the screen object module, which allows you to interact with the elements within the screen. I'll give you a quick example of what I mean later on. And then we just define the element type that we're using. So in this case, for example, we're using button. We're going to define that variable, calling it login button, and then we just pass the argument as the path. We just say ID sign-in button. We don't need to say find element, any of that sort. The same with text field. We just provide a variable name for our text field and then pass the path. And then we go on and define the functions that we want to do for these elements. So for example, with button, we say define click login button, and we pass in an argument or a method that says login button click. And same thing for text field and clearing the text field. But you're kind of probably wondering, like, well, where do all of these scripts come from? Well, that's a good question as well. If you drill down into the element type, say, for example, button, you get to go through the accessor's .rb file, which basically, if you could play that for me, please, thank you, which basically allows you to kind of, oh, it's not too clear, but basically when you drill down into the element and you go to that declaration, you'll see that these module accessors will allow you to pick out the functions that you want. It's already created for you. This is what's good about screen object. And the way the script and how to write them is already there for you as long as you remember the variable that you've used. Sorry. Oh, no worries. And so if you, for example, choose text field, it will provide all the capabilities of text field that you need to use, and all you have to do is define them. Whether it be clearing it or getting the text or checking if it exists, all you have to use is using your variable name and then create using this accessor. All right. Next. Oh, sorry, I had the clicker. All right, for the step definition. So how do we write the step definition with the screen objects file? Good question. In this case, instead of having to use find element like previous, now we can just call that screen that we've created, say on login screen, and then we can call the function that we've used. So clear email text field or enter email and click login button. For us, the benefit of this was for those that are non-technical, they're able to see what we are testing, what screens are being run, what steps are being done, so that they don't just have to go through the feature file level. They can go within to under the hood and see the step definition and know what's going on and know exactly what screen is being run and what's being tested. The file structure for using the screen objects framework would then have your feature file, and then your step definition, and then the screens file, like I've mentioned. But then this goes in hand with all the screens and all the features that you have. And this is used with background. All right. There are other options aside from what we've used to expand that. So there's the object repository and then the page navigation. So object repo file is just basically a file where you keep all your elements in one file. Yes, you do define a constant variable, say for example, sign in button, and then you just pass the path to that. And when you go to your screen file, all you have to do is call that variable into the element type, and then you can run it that way. There's also page navigation so that you don't have to use background with your feature files, which will allow you to just kind of outline the steps needed for certain features. And you can call that page navigation in your step definition and run it like that. If you want to add object repo and the page nav into your files, then the file structure would look something like this. You would still have your feature file, your step definitions, and screens file, but then you would also have an object repo file for all your elements and the page nav file with all your page navigation. And so this is used without background. So what did we learn for this, and what's next for us for screen objects? There's still obviously progress is always needed. So in this case, we want to add more collection methods, and we want to implement device-specific methods to accessors. So those steps that are specifically for iOS or those steps that are specifically for Android. We also want to be updated with the latest and greatest Ruby version, of course. Progress and accomplishments. So where did this lead us with using screen objects? Whew, that was a lot of code. All right, so we learned Ruby. Yeah, we did. We had to learn Ruby because most of our team were manual. And that goes to say we transitioned a manual team into an automation team, literally, no exaggeration. We all became automation engineers. Our screen objects framework was up within 2 months' time with a 96% complete, which was great because we were able to produce this to the higher-ups and show them what we've done and accomplished. And the best part, we were still using Appium. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel or just use XUI test or Espresso, we stuck with Appium and we just made it better. And making it better allowed us for easier scalability and maintainability. And it just doesn't stop there. We actually expanded it to more robust testing, which Charlene will give you a preview of.
Great. Thank you, Charlotte. Yeah, that was great. So now we have our framework in place. We started converting all our manual test cases into automation test cases, but everything was all in GitHub or our local machine. So people were coming up to us and asking, what's your test coverage like? What are you testing? Why am I not seeing any test cases from you? So of course we had to have a test case management. So we decided on XRAY for JIRA for this one. And then I'll briefly talk about the UI automation. We used Applitools for this one. And then CI/CD, of course, everyone wants CI/CD for their team, so I'll talk about the testing portion for their CI/CD for that, and we use Jenkins. So XRAY for JIRA, very easy to implement XRAY for JIRA. First, you need the XRAY plugin, of course. And basically, I don't know if everyone has used JIRA before, but you just create it like a normal JIRA ticket. So you create it, and the only difference would be the type is test. And then down there you have the test details that says type is automated, cucumber. The scenario type is scenario, and of course the scenario. And this ticket is SP10165. I don't know if you can see, but these are actually going to be inserted into our feature files. So in our feature file, before XRAY, we didn't have this tag. And then after XRAY, we just inserted this tag into it. So now it's referencing this ticket into our feature file. This is for XRAY. And so when you run your automated test, our Cucumber JSON file that's been generated, this will have this SP10165 tag into it. And when you do a curl command, I don't know, it's like really down there below. When you upload this Cucumber JSON file, it will automatically generate an execution result. I will have a demo on that in a little bit. But I briefly want to talk to you about our UI automation. So before our UI automation, this was one of our feature files that was really, really intensive in terms of our asserts. So again, asserts are great, but it really doesn't test any UI. It's great for checking that, hey, an element exists or the text is correct. But in terms of maintenance, it's really crazy. So every time, so for example, if manage store, all of a sudden your product manager says, I don't want manage store anymore, I want manage stores. You'd have to go in and change all of the feature files, your step definitions, and all the data that you need to change in order to just make this test pass. So in terms of maintenance, it was really rough. But after UI automation, we just deleted all of that and just left with one single sentence, user-facing elements. We decided on that one for our team. So how did we do that? We created a method for Applitools so that we can just insert this method in. And going off of what Dan said, if this is kind of rough, if we have any challenge us and make sure maybe you guys have something better for us. But this is how we organized our Applitools test cases. So we organized it by batch ID. So just going through this, we passed the test name and the description for perform UI check, and then connect the Applitools server and using our API key, and then batch creation to organize our test, and then we start the test. So drilling down to our step definition using the same feature file, we got rid of all of these asserts, and then we're left with this perform UI check method. So looking closer to it, this is just two of the asserts here. Really rough. Maintenance is really crazy when we had to change something because our product manager decided that they don't like that name anymore. And so instead of that, we just pass the test name and the description, and it will show up on Applitools. So now that we have all of our framework in place, our automation automation test cases all on XRAY for JIRA. So now we got to put it all together. So we packaged it all up on our run Qt file. So the first line is actually after a dev commit, it will upload it to whatever device form you want. So TestDroid, Sauce Labs, Genymotion, or whatever. This one is Sauce Labs. This is Sauce Labs. And then we start the server and then run the test. And then this last one, the curl command, is actually the exit report that is being uploaded into JIRA. So here's a quick demo.
Okay.
So the first thing you will see is actually what we had before in terms of our exit reports. It was in Confluence. This was our release reports. A lot of copy and pasting going on. On this side is actually our manual test cases. So it wasn't really, thought out or anything. A lot of editing going on, linking the JIRA bug tickets to it manually. We had to do that. And then saving. And then just to see our automation results, you have to download the file. I know we can put this on Jenkins, but our product manager really didn't care to go into Jenkins. So they'd have to download it and wait for it to download and then open it up, wait for it to open up again. And then they have to go in and look at the feature overview just to see our automation test cases. So this is the results. So now, after this, the demo will show you what we did with XRAY for JIRA as well. I will show you like the splash screen real quick. So it's Appium. And then this is just a splash screen test. And then really quickly, and then there's a pause right now because there's the curl command that's being run, and it's uploading the Cucumber JSON file into JIRA. And it generates a ticket automatically, and this is the execution result ticket. And now you just go into JIRA, and there's your execution result for this particular test. And so all our tests are in JIRA, and now you can do amazing metrics like how much automated you have, how much manual test cases you have. You can show that to your boss and say, hey, we're doing this much for automation. And then our exit reports are also in JIRA. It's easy to integrate the bugs into our release reports as well. And yeah, and it's great because all the stories and everything is all in JIRA. All our bugs are there as well. So that was the basic thing that we have at Capital One. So we had our automation test results all on JIRA, our test automation on Jenkins, CI/CD. So what was great about that was everything was using Appium, and because of Appium, we didn't need a dedicated iOS or Android team. We just had one QE team, so that we can be creative with what we can do with it. So what did we learn during all of this? So yeah, give time for a proof of concept. Not everything can be done within a day or two. Well, maybe. But, we'll fail, but that's okay. We should keep going.
Yeah, and it's progress, not perfection. At least that's definitely for us. I mean, we want to strive for perfection in anything that we do, but of course progress is better. Because technically you'll never be done because tech is always changing. So accept that change and continue to move forward as we did to be able to complete our pipeline, which everybody wanted, and in such a manner where we were able to have a scalable and maintainable framework. Yeah. So with that said, these are 3 quotes that Charlene and I kind of handpicked that goes hand in hand with our journey with using Appium and then XRAY and expanding it to being able to deploy to TestDroid. So first things first, Rome wasn't built in a day. Rome and its greatness and its history definitely wasn't overnight. It did take some time to kind of be where it is today. And we feel that that's where our framework is and our tests and our pipeline. It definitely was not built in a day, and it was definitely not a smooth process. There is a lot of heads down coding, a lot of learning curve, and a lot of encouraging work. Value simplicity, because the simpler it is, the better it is to scale. I think that's kind of what we did. That's why we stuck with the Screen Objects framework, because it was easier for us to implement and for others to understand. And then it helped us to progress into expanding our automation. And last but not least, technology is a personal connection. I think in any case, not just in tech, but also in any career or in anything that you do in life, there should be some kind of personal connection, which I would like to say passion. So the passion to be able to want something and to deliver something great is definitely at the heart of our project. So that kind of concludes our talk today. We would like to say thank you to the sponsors, to Dan, to Jason, to Isaac, to Jonathan for having us here. It's such a great opportunity to be able to talk in front of you all and kind of share our knowledge into what we've done with our experience with Appium. Charlene?
Yeah, thank you guys for having us. If you have any further questions or questions at all about any of the solutions that we talked about today, here's our email, and we're also on LinkedIn. So yeah, thank you everyone, and have a great rest of your Appium conference in London in general.
Thank you.